Hello, Camp Pros, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. My name is Travis Allison. I run a blog about running a great summer camp at CampHacker.tv.
Hi, my name is Dan Weir. I'm the Director of Camping Services at Frost Valley YMCA. Frost Valley is a year-round camp conference education facility in the Catskill Mountains, and this will be my 18th summer working up at this summer camp.
And my name is Gabrielle Rail, and I'm one of the camp directors at Camp Ouareau. Camp Ouareau is an all-girls camp with a linguistic program up in the Laurentian Mountains in Quebec.
Well, welcome to you both. I'm sorry Joe is not able to make it, but it's spring at camp, and so we know what's going on. There's lots of stuff, and Joe happens to be involved in a big construction project, so we'll miss Joe. Today, we are going to do what Dan calls the whip. We're going to do some rapid-fire quick tips for staff training. Gab and I did what turned out to be 12 tips last spring, and it was the most downloaded show of last year. And so we're going to do it again and come up with some new ideas. Part of this comes out of our recent introduction of Gab's new show on the network called Camp Code. And we wanted to give you a chance to see quickly what our thinking is when we put out our Camp Code shows. So Gab and Beth and Ruby Compton, who many of you know from being on the show a couple of times, run Camp Code, and it is specific and just focused on staff training. So we're going to do the whip and do some quick ideas to give you some rapid fire tips and tricks for your staff training this summer. But we do hope that you will check out the Camp Code, which is at camphacker.tv/campcode. There are some awesome episodes. We're just about to release episode 10, and there'll be 12 before staff training starts for everybody. So please check that out, camphacker.tv/campcode. Dan, we're going to start with you. First tip for staff training.
Great. I think the first tip is to know your audience. When I'm presenting to a group of 17-year-olds, I tend to present, and our junior counselors first time, I tend to present a little bit differently than I would present to my management staff or to someone that's out of college. And to really know the audience and know what they're going to gravitate to is an important thing as part of staff training.
Nice. That's great. And you, Gab?
I like to do something called leadership classes, which is when you're working with staff members that are returning year after year. I find that when they get there for their third staff training, that's where you really need to challenge them and treat them as differently than the rest of the staff and set up those expectations at the very beginning. But what leadership classes, what that does is you give them a form to fill out, and they participate in everything during the session, but they mark down what the session giver did that worked, and maybe some suggestions. And then I debrief with them afterwards. And they don't do this at every session, but I get them to do at least 3 times or 4 times throughout staff training. And this is to help them for when they become leadership team members. And it's also to help them. I try to give them sessions near the end of staff training, maybe a 15-minute portion of leading the rest of the staff. So it's really for them to learn a little bit more, and the people that are giving sessions know that that's happening as well. I give them the feedback afterwards.
It's awesome. What a brilliant idea. I love it. Dan.
Attention is the key with staff training. You could have your staff members in front of you for 2 hours, and you could do a bunch of icebreakers, but if you don't relate them to the training material, you're really missing an awesome opportunity. Having that attention, and even you can wrap up any team building game to the subject matter that you're talking about, and showing them how easy it is to think about the fly, and showing them why you're doing this really goes a long way. If you're able to educate yourself on why they're at camp, everyone knows why they're at camp because they want to have fun, they want to be outdoors with children, they really believe in what they're doing. But if you could tell them why in many different aspects, in many different avenues, you're going to have a much better training, and attention is definitely key. Perfect.
My session idea is one that we did for years called the Clientele Mindset, and that involved, we often talk about professionalism in the industry, and I've taken to calling everybody who works full-time or wants to work full-time Camp Pro, and this is really the essence of the Camp Pro mindset, where we teach young adults how to think in such a way that they're always looking to look after clients. So that they're not just, a new body to fit into or a name on a checklist, but instead they're real people with real families, with real concerns, and how to do things like how to shake their hand properly, how to look at people in the eye when you're having a conversation with them. It's not normal for teens and young adults to greet each other by shaking each other's hands, but I think it makes you stand out. And so we talk about that, how to get to know people's names, and just treat them like they are the whole reason for your being, which in reality is the truth. And we need to make those families feel incredibly welcome at camp. And I think that that goes for camps that you don't necessarily see the parents, or you may not see the parents until visiting day. It's the same thing. Any new person you see, you put out your hand and introduce yourself, make them feel welcome, make sure they know where things are, basic things like the washroom, where to get a drink when they arrive at camp. Gab, for you?
I have put pages of your manuals and different ones up in the bathroom stalls around camp during staff training. Basically, just put them up everywhere, but bathrooms is the place that most people read. So I
fantastic.
That. There you go.
That's awesome.
Bathroom reading material.
Yeah, that's super smart. Super
laminated.
Yeah. That is key.
Dan, do you have another one?
For me, it's always about bringing it and never going on autopilot. I think of when we have staff, you have retention, you have some staff members that have heard the same session from you 3-4 times, and you need to figure out a way to alter that session yearly. You can't show the same video, you can't use the same audio clip, you can't tell the exact same story you told the year before. You can, but you need to point out that you're sharing this again because you think it's the best example. But you really need to make sure that you're not on autopilot and that you're challenging yourself. Steve McGuire is a huge advocate for this. I think it shows to your staff as well, too. I think if your staff are seeing how you're trying to alter things each time, they're going to do that with programming. They're not going to run the same game all the time. They're going to change how they run the program slightly, but still the same way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My next one is about using video. I think video is becoming increasingly easy for us to use, and I think that there are ways that you can incorporate videos, silly songs, lip syncs, whatever, into ways to introduce a session or introduce an idea, or to illustrate your point. You could show a TED Talk or a video that you found. But I'm thinking about making videos and using this time at staff training. I posted something to the CampHacker Instagram yesterday about the best way to become an expert is to teach. And I wholeheartedly think we need to get people teaching as early as possible. And so I think we spend some time, have some people sort of storyboard and create ideas of things that we need to teach kids this summer and have them available in video form. So maybe at the first dinner or the first few meals, you could show some videos, how to do duties, how to clean your cabin, anything that we could create to give that to the campers. Those are also resources that will then be awesome for families who are trying to make a decision about camp. You all know, if you've listened long enough, that I'm always thinking about ways to market camp. And one of the best ways is to show what daily life is like and the transformations we make in kids. And the way to do that is to show, yes, you're going to be a part of taking care of this place. You're going to be a part of the community. And here's some of the ways that you can contribute in the best way. So I say you make some videos, how-to videos, when you're training.
I really like that. Can I tag something?
Please.
I want to do this. Well, we're going to do this project, but basically, it's great to have parents come up to camp and do a panel. If you can do that, great. But if you can't, ask if you can go to their home and ask a bunch of questions. And what do you expect from your for your child? How do you want the camp counselor to act when your child is home lonely? How do you want the camp counselor to act on the first day? Just very, very simple things so that it creates that a stronger link between the clients and our staff members, because staff members are very connected to camp,
Yep.
but not always have a full understanding of that parents are leaving, whether it's a day camp or whether it's a residential camp, that they're physically leaving their child, with you in the care. So we're going to interview a couple of people this year and show it over our staff training in different segments.
Nice. That's brilliant.
Video, iPhones, iPads are great. Video,
yes.
It's so easy. So look at iPhone. Just don't move it too much.
Right. Exactly. Lock it off. Put it on a tripod. I'm with you. Dan, what else you got?
Keeping them active and involved. I think staff really want to be able to participate, and sitting in a lecture style, even if it's in outside or in the dining hall or somewhere else nostalgia, it's still lecture style. You really need to figure out a way to keep everyone involved in the training, even the people that have just been there for 24 hours.
So break up the style of presentation.
Yeah, that's another way of saying it too.
Gab, you have a limit on the length of time for training sessions, right?
Yep, it's 15 minutes for lecture speaking period time, and I'll really say this: the first year that we did this, it wasn't a complete success because it was very, very, very difficult to do. And what ended up happening sometimes was that we kept doing a lecture, then doing an activity, then doing a debrief.
Right. And
it was sort of the same routine. And so we really realized that, okay, we have to, it's not only just limiting it to 15 minutes, but it's as Dan just said, sort of shaking it up, different teaching styles. So sometimes we'd start with a story, go into an experiential learning exercise, get them to reflect on things. And it just also made us a lot more concise with what we were trying to get across. I really think that the more time you talk, the more BS is added into it. So when you limit that talking time, you're limiting the sort of the access things that people won't remember anyways. But now that we've done it for a couple of years, it's second nature. And staff members are getting so much better at being concise also. So 15 minutes is the max, I think. Yeah.
It's amazing. Right on. My next tip is make a song about it. And one of the ways that we did this, I know that this was talked about on Camp Code. One of the ways we did this a number of years ago is we sat all of the staff down and explained how to do duties in the morning. And then we gave them time to write a song about it, called it Ditties. And they were able to, we gave them, say, use a nursery rhyme song, use a pop song from right now, rewrite the words so that you can have something easy to remember to teach your kids while they're doing, their part of cleanup around camp, and make it easy to remember all the ways to do it. So that's my idea, is to either teach the duties, but then have them create songs. We call that session Ditties. Gab, what do you got?
Write your question down. So don't ever ask, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
It's very, very normal for people to, one, freeze and not have any questions come to their head. And then also, two, you're avoiding that one person that does ask questions all the time, and then the rest of the staff get annoyed with that one person. You don't want that to happen. So, or the quiet staff member that does have a question and feels shy. So, basically, we don't ask if anybody has questions. We ask them to write it down. Michael Brown one, with it.
Yep.
Write it before you talk, or with this, write it before you speak. And then sometimes what I do, instead of ask them what those questions are, they pair up in groups of three. They try to answer those questions. If there's some of those questions they weren't able to find an answer to, then they bring it to the entire group. And it's a great way to get them to think for themselves, and that they do have questions. Of course they do. Just giving them the space to do that. So I never ask anymore, does anybody have any questions? I say, please write your one question down that you have. Super, super smart. I love this show. This makes me so happy. Notes down as we're yes, exactly. We're not Gab and I are not looking at the camera today. We are just taking notes quickly. Yeah. Dan, what do you got?
theme, and I don't mean theme in the traditional sense of dressing up like pirates or superheroes. Not knocking that at all.
Yep.
But having an overarching theme to your training. So I'll give the example. We started doing themes 3 years ago with our staff training, and the first one we chose was Build Strong. And we related all the trainings back to that phrase of Build Strong. And then at the end of the training week, we literally had wood planks that said Build Strong on it, and the staff signed it. And we hung those on the foyer and entries for the dining hall. So now every day when they come in the dining hall 3 times a day, they're seeing the phrase Build Strong, and it's bringing them back to staff training. They see that they put their name up there, they have that commitment to that theme, and it's been fantastic. And now I have staff that are excited about the theme for staff training and tossing us ideas. So we've done Build Strong, we've done Be Present. It's really important to us that they remember as training as the summer goes on, and not that we just front load everything and we hope for the best. So I can't recommend enough a theme that they can really gravitate to and embrace as a whole.
That's perfect. That I did. Mine is number 13 is embrace your history. And I've had lots of occasions to talk to camps about see how they value history in different ways. And I think it's something I could have done better as a camp director to make my staff understand that they're part of a group. Beth has this session that she does just on legacy and understanding that you're leaving a mark on this place and how to do that. But I think one of the things I could have done better is embrace history and talk about some of the stories of people that went before. Bring in alumni to tell their stories or to video their stories, even better. And just involve people in, this is a 60-year history, a 40-year history, a 7-year history of what we're working together on. And there have been people that have gone before you that have made this possible for you. And, this is why camp started and how we got the property. And I've heard some awesome historical stories lately. And some camps are doing it right. So Camp Winnebago in Maine, they have a museum on site that is just about Winnebago and celebrates their long history. And what a cool place to have a spot to mark the moments of camp. This camp's pretty temporal. It kind of comes and goes, and it's in some people's minds. But creating records and all that stuff, I think, is really important. So that's mine, is embrace history. Turns us over to Gab. Do you have another one?
I like what you said, Travis, about history, and what I tell our staff is that our history is really our foundation, but what helps us grow are the changes that we do as long as we're following the values of our camp. And when you have die-hard camp staff, changes are very difficult for them. And so in this historical portion, we also highlight some of the different shifts that our directors have done over the years to keep Camp Ouareau alive. And so each director has done something that they had to change our program so we could keep as a strong organization. And I joke with them, we've put in stage lights in our lodge, which is one of our original buildings.
Yeah.
And I joke with them saying, don't leave those lights on. I don't want to be known as the director that burned down the lodge. That can't be the legacy. So, I was like, all of these guys are the wonderful things. What is Gabrielle known for? Burning down the lodge. That can't happen. But I think since we've been doing that part of our history has been also change. They're much more open to what needs to get done so that we can still remain a strong organization that has a historical background but is moving sort of into the future.
Right on. Dan, do you have a final tip?
Final. I've got a few more. I would say the best one we've done in the past few years comes from my coworker Cam, who you can find him at Leader Cam on Twitter. It's designing a manual that people will look at. Cam's got a graphic design path that he went to school for, and he took our manual, which was probably double in length, over 100 pages, and really hard to read, and different fonts, and also uses the fire starter, and made it, cut it down in half the length, made it look intentional, made it look really well put together, and he got all the minor spelling mistakes out, everything. Made it look so clean that people read the whole thing. People will actually at night will actually go back and literally read it. And so you have those staff that are nervous and will start reading it and will literally complete the manual. And it's fantastic. And so I can't emphasize enough to not do it on Microsoft Word last minute, but instead find some way to make it look beautiful and utilize your resources in that sense.
Awesome. And I've heard Gab talk about just that very thing on Camp Code.
Awesome.
Gab, do you have one more? I'm going to get one more from each of you. So Dan, you think about your final one.
Okay.
I do have one more.
Please.
So basically, this is something that you can do with your those staff members that have been back for like their third year or more. And different areas on camp, you can have 2 different signs that talk about the same topic. So, for example, in your dining room, what do campers need to know and what do staff need to know? So you have a list of the guidelines that campers should be following in the dining room. And, for example, we don't allow a certain age group to carry, hot plates or, so on and so forth. And what should staff members need? What do they need to know? Not about emergencies, just about how this area runs. And this is very helpful for new staff members, and it's very helpful for those staff members that are transitioning from CIT to staff. Even though they've went through a whole program, it's really helpful. And you can build that throughout the summer, throughout the staff training, so it's not overwhelming, and post it up around camp and just use 2 different color boards, and that's very helpful, I think. And it gives also, like you said, Travis, teaching is a total other way of learning. And for those guys that are coming back year after year, they have to really think about it and put in great, proper vocabulary, and they put a lot of time into it. But yeah, I love this as a training tool. It's a silent training tool.
Yes. SMRT. Dan, your last one.
My last one just goes back to enthusiasm. If I know I talked about bringing it and not going on autopilot, but having genuine enthusiasm. I'm not talking about screaming at the top of your lungs or anything of that matter, but more that sympathy and that care that comes with enthusiasm, and and getting them excited that the kids are coming. Often when staff are showing up to staff training, they've had a long year. School's really rough. Their personal lives are all over the place. Their parents are yelling at them because they're going away for several weeks and they didn't take care of this and didn't take care of that. And having enthusiasm about what's going to happen in a few days and the lives are going to change, and using that as care as well, really centers the staff and it role models exactly what you want their camp experience to be like for the children. So that's. I think I can't emphasize enough having enthusiasm, showing that you want to be there and that you're not just going through the motions.
Awesome. Good one. So I have one last one, and this comes from Dr. G, who presented at Mid-States, and she had some really smart things to say about working with staff and sort of about their developmental stages. And here's the thing one big thing I took away from her. You need to create a culture at your camp that values sleep. We are getting staff who come out of school with a huge sleep debt, and then sometimes training events might go till 11 o'clock at night, and then they want a bit of free time to just hang out with their friends. All very normal expectations and things that I certainly went through on my own when I was a counselor and when I was a director. But we need to change that culture of late nights so that we give them a chance to catch up on sleep in that however much time we have to train them. And then they are way better physically and psychologically prepared to be counselors on day 1 of camp. And then they can also maintain the strength that they need to be a good counselor throughout the whole long summer. And so that's my last one. Create a culture that values sleep, from at Ask Dr. G on Twitter. She's got good stuff if you're interested in a training speaker. I thank you both for some great ideas. Dan's in a hurry and needs to get going. So at this point then I'm going to move us quickly on to our tool of the week. So Dan, let's do yours, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you. So mine is a book called The Way of the Seal by Mark Devine, and I heard about this book on the Art of Manliness podcast, and the podcast, it's funny, it's not about gender at all. It's really interviews about bettering yourself.
Right.
But in the interview with this guy who wrote this book, and I picked up the book afterwards, and it's fantastic. It's all about being mentally prepared, and that's really what we're going through as camp professionals during this time is stress, and the best way to combat is to be mentally prepared. And it just the tools they provide in the book, they're straight, and they're easy, they're simple, they're easy to implement right away, but it's a great read and a quick read as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan, for making time for us today. Where can people follow you or get in touch with you if they have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, so I tweet at Dan Loves Camp. I also blog at danlovescamp.com. And then I work at Frost Valley YMCA as well, so you can get a hold of me through there. But other than that, thank you so much again, and hope everyone has a good summer. And, yeah.
Take care, man.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Take it easy, Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Bye.
Gab, what's your tool today?
My tool is BigStock.com, and it's great that Dan mentioned a nice-looking staff manual. I really do think that that's important, streamlining your fonts and making sure the color looks great and nice. And BigStock has the deal right now where you get 7 days of 5 downloads a day, and it can either be JPEG images or vector files, which are, sort of drawings, but really, really nice stuff. And if let's just say you're sending out emails weekly to families throughout the summer, that you could get some great infographics from the site, or you can just get some very nice images, even a picture of a bus, so that it's for transportation. So it's free for 7 days, and if you're like us, we forgot that we had to unsubscribe, and so we actually got it for a month, and we're loving it, and I think it was only $60, so it's quite a deal. BigStock.com.
Wonderful. That's great. I have a less relevant to the time, sort of more general tip or tool. We dropped our iPad. And the front glass just went in a million pieces. So we've been sort of limping along with it, and until I did some research and realized that it cost me $24 to get a new. They call it the digitizer. That's the pane of glass that's on the top of the iPad, and you can get a new digitizer for any touch screen. So if that top piece of glass breaks, you can replace that, and it comes with instructions, and they're pretty technical instructions. I think it's going to be a nerve-wracking time to sit down, put this on my tool bench, and pull apart the iPad and try to get it to work. But the cost of buying a new iPad, which is a tool that we use in our business every day, and have big plans to use this summer for our camp visits, it's worth $25 to me to try to fix it on my own. So I'll put a link to the company that I bought it. It was off of Amazon, cost $25 to ship it to Canada. And it's just that piece of glass with some of the electronic connections, and then you just watch a YouTube video on how to fix it. So that may save, if some of you use iPads for your programming, or your personal directors are using iPads, phones with a touchscreen, anything, they are replaceable with a little bit of tender loving care. So I suggest you look into that.
Yeah, and we should. Will you let us know how it went?
Yes.
Putting it together.
Yeah.
I'll be interested. I know a couple of people that will.
We'll want to know it.
Really need to use this actually.
Right.
See if it was easy or not.
Yes. It doesn't look easy. It looks like it'll take a while, but it doesn't look complicated.
Doable.
Yeah.
Is it doable? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How tech savvy do you need to be? Yeah.
Exactly.
We all know somebody though that's kind of tech savvy.
Yeah.
We're not in this ridiculous bubble. There's people out there that that love these type of challenges, so you don't have to do it yourself.
Well, yes, and maybe this will be a new CampHacker service. Send Travis your iPad, and he will replace your screen for you.
You get a sticker. You get a CampHacker.
And you get a CampHacker sticker on the back of your iPad. Or your cell phone, whatever it is you need.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'd do that. I'd pay for that.
Gab, how can people get in touch with you, follow up with you, etc.?
They can get in touch with me at Gabs, G-A-B-Z, at Ouareau, Ouareau.com. Check out where I work at Ouareau.com, or follow me on the Twitter bird at Gabrielle Rail, Rail 2L.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gab, for being on and sharing your awesome ideas.
Yeah, no problem.
Gab, what's been the biggest thing that you got out of Camp Code this year? What's been your biggest discovery or thing you're most excited about?
That's a great question. I just did a leadership training program for the Quebec Camping Association this past weekend, and my challenge is that it's for CIT directors, coordinators, and my challenge is that my own CITs directors come to this program every year. So my challenge is to do stuff that I've never done before for them, and so it keeps the program fresh.
Yeah.
I listened to some of the Camp Code podcasts so I could get new training ideas. I think it's just something that gets your brain ready for this. As many of us, say that staff training is the most important part of the summer. I tend to agree with that, and it just gets you with it. Even maybe you have the same ideas, but it reminds you of those ideas, or it gives you a different take on how to present something. So I actually listened to it so that I could have some fresh ideas in this training program and give the CIT directors something that they, fresh for them, and hopefully bring to their camps that they've never seen before. So it's a really cool podcast. Like, totally different from CampHacker. Both have amazing information, but there's some specific tools and tips on staff training that I think are pretty neat. I'm learning.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I've been listening to them too, because I'm not in the room when they're recorded, so it's been fun for me to listen to them and hear all the great ideas. I always love listening to Beth talk about staff training, because she is really the best at this I've ever seen. And to hear how you and Ruby are really on the same plane. And I've known that from our years of doing the show and seeing you teach before. I know that you're on the same level as Beth. But I'm so enthusiastic and excited about the awesome stuff that goes on that podcast. So it's been a pleasure.
And Beth and I have known each other for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Almost probably 15 years, probably at this point,
I
think. So it's been quite a long time. So there's things that I'm learning so much from what she's saying. And Ruby, I've never met. We met the first time this year at ACA in Orlando. But everything that she has to say, I think, is genius. And we all have our own sort of a different take on how to do things. But the value system is shared. So I think that's why it makes it. I think that's why the synergy works really well. Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, we're really excited about that show and grateful to you, Gab, for taking on a second show on the network. It's awesome. It's so. Please do check it out, people. You can go there. It's at camphacker.tv/campcode. And you can also download it for free to your iPhone, to your Android phone. Just use a podcast app and search for Camp Code. It's 2 words, usually CampHacker. Well, CampHacker is usually 1 word, but Camp Code is 2 words. And you'll find some awesome resources there. Thanks, Gab, for being on the show.
No problem.
Right on. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, if you've heard some good ideas, we hope you'll click the like button below this. And if you want to be informed when our new CampHacker shows come out, please do click subscribe. It's helpful to us to get these shows out to you, and because we put these shows on for free just so that camp pros around the world can learn and grow together. And if you're listening on your phone, then we'll hope you go check out the show notes for this podcast at camphacker.tv/podcast. And if you love what we're doing, if you go to camphacker.tv/iTunes, it will open up iTunes and you could leave us a rating and review. There's also a rating and review in the Stitcher app too. So all these great things that you can do for us, we'd be so grateful. We hope that, I think we'll probably have 1 or 2 more shows before the season is wrapped up, depending on who we can get together for the panel. But we're so grateful that you've joined us today for what has turned out to be 17 new tips on camp staff training. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. And thanks for the evening, friends. Good one.